and send it. I'm happy to be here. So as Denise said, and thank you for your introduction and for doing this and being part of this organization, I'm the CEO and founder of the Speaker Sisterhood. We started in August of 2016, so we're still a pretty new organization. And I wanted to give an overview of how this happened. Like, how are we all here tonight? It's kind of a crazy story. But before we get into that, I want to ask you all 3 questions. First question is, raise your hand if you love public speaking. What's wrong? You're like, love is a strong word. Second is, raise your hand if you will do public speaking if you're asked, but you don't necessarily enjoy it. Okay. And third is, raise your hand if you're seriously considering just like booking it out of here. You're like, why did this was a weird call. I'm not sure why I did this to myself. Well, I get it. And if someone asked me those 3 options 10 years ago, I would have absolutely been in group 3. And I would right now be like, yeah, no, this is fine. Like just making my way towards the door and then running and never coming back. So thanks so much for your courage and staying in the room. And the reason that I would have chosen option number 3 10 years ago is because I was super, super shy, like the shyest person you'll ever meet. And I was working at my first job after college, actually here in this building. I was working, at the time it was Laser 99.3 was in this building. And I was so quiet. I would come to the staff meetings and I would like sit in the corner and I'd be like, please don't call on me, please don't call on me. And when they'd say, does anyone have any ideas? I'd be like, nope. And I'd be writing like 1,000 ideas down, but never mention them. And then I would tell my boss, and sometimes my boss would take credit for my ideas. And then sometimes I would see other people get promoted or, offered some sort of wage increase, and I'd be sitting there going, but I'm working really hard and I'm not getting any acknowledgement for that. And so that started to become confusing to me, because I'm like, well, if I'm working hard, why doesn't that equate to acknowledgement and recognition and more money? And then I made another observation, which was pretty terrifying at the time, which was noticing that all the leaders in the office had this one trait in common, and that was that they were amazing communicators. And not just that, they were really great public speakers. Like, they could come in and run a meeting and people would be captivated. They'd listen to everything they had to say. They would feel like connected to them. And when I made that connection between public speaking and leadership, I was like, oh no! If I want to be a leader someday, I have to learn how to talk. That's a really scary moment for a shy person, to recognize that these 2 things go hand in hand. So now I have this information, right? And I have to figure out, like, what am I going to do? Because I know that this is how this works. And I just kind of tucked it away for like a year and continued to stay quiet and just observe. And then one day decided to join an organization called Toastmasters. And I was 24 or 25 at the time. And I went to my first meeting, and it was similar to this conference room. There were about 10 people. Most of them were 2 to 3 times my age, so I felt like, oh, this is fine. It's like, hanging out with my grandparents and like their friends, and they're pretty non-judgmental. And I went in the room and I decided to join, and I went to meetings every other week for 6 months and was like, I'm learning public speaking. But really, I was watching people do public speaking. I never gave a speech because I was so shy. I'm like, this is too scary. I'm just going to watch and take notes. So I was like, oh, okay, so you do that, you don't do that. But never actually got up and spoke. And then one day after 6 months, the president of the club came up to me and said, we're going to put you on a schedule to speak at the next meeting. And I was like, oh, no, I'm not ready. And the next thing he said changed my life. He said, you'll never be ready, you just have to start. You'll never be ready, you just have to start. That's what he said to me, and I was like, okay. I guess you can put me on the schedule. What choice do you have after that?
Come on in.
Yeah, come on in. Sit right here. So, needless to say, the next 2 weeks were the worst 2 weeks of my life, because then I had to write this speech and anticipate this moment where I was going to stand in front of the group and start talking about my job. My speech was a 4-minute speech about my job. And in this 2 weeks, I started to realize why I was so shy, and I started to have all these thoughts about my insecurities and why it's so scary to stand in front of a group of people. And it became clear to me that I had spent half my life hiding up to that point. Because when I was 12 years old, I was 6 feet tall. today I'm 6 feet tall. When I was 12, I was 6 feet tall. And if you remember being 6 feet tall, or if you remember being 12 years old, you're probably like this tall. And the boys were like this tall. So it was pretty traumatizing to be huge at that age because I was made fun of all the time. I was called an ogre and I was called the Jolly Green Giant, and boys were just terrified of me. And I remember being at dances and like saying like, hi, do you want to dance? And the guys would be like, ah! Like, I can't. Like, it was a terrifying situation. So the way that I dealt with that was by just being quiet. Like, I decided to fade into the background, be invisible, hide as often as I could, and just try to make myself small by not speaking. So when I had this day where I had to go and give a speech, all these feelings started coming up. What if they don't like me? What if they make fun of me? What if they call me an ogre? What if I'm rejected? And it made me really have to come to terms with all of this stuff that I've been holding inside for years about that traumatic high school experience. And so the day came when I had to give that speech. And I remember driving to the meeting and just like tears just streaming down my face and thinking, who do I think I am? Like, I'm not a leader. I'm not a public speaker. I don't have anything to say. This is stupid. Like, they're gonna laugh. And I pulled over and I just kind of sat there and like worked through all of these thoughts. And then somewhere, I don't know where this voice came from, but from somewhere deep inside of me, this voice came out and said, you're gonna go in there and you're gonna give the speech. And I'm really thankful for that voice because we would not be here today if that voice did not show up from somewhere. I got back on the road. I drove to the meeting. I walked in that room. Stood in front of the room with my notes. I read the entire speech word for word. I never looked at the audience once. And at the end, I just like put it down. I was like, thank you. And I looked up and everyone clapped. No one was like, yeah, you're not supposed to be here. No, you're not actually a public speaker. None of that happened. And all I could think was like, oh my God, I didn't die. Like, I really thought that public speaking was going to kill me because it was so terrifying. And I sat down that day and I felt proud of myself for giving that speech, but mostly what I felt was this opening. It was like a new voice emerging, and with that new voice was new confidence and new ideas and new beliefs about myself. And over time, I started to see myself differently. And I stayed in Toastmasters for 5 years, and over those 5 years, I started to believe in myself. I started to see that what I had to say had value, and I started to understand that my creativity was important. And over all of that time, what happened was a whole entire secret life emerged from public speaking and from giving myself this incredible challenge to push outside of my shyness and insecurity and instead create a whole new life. So 10 years ago,
Exactly.
it's okay. If someone said to me, so I'm looking at my crystal ball, here's what's gonna happen to you in 10 years. You're gonna have written 4 books and you'll be an award-winning professional speaker and you'll be an entrepreneur and you'll be leading a whole network of public speaking clubs for women. How does that sound? I'd be like, that's obviously not my life. What else does it say in there? Because there's no possible way that could happen because I'm too shy and I don't even have any idea what you're talking about. So what's amazing about this journey is that public speaking is the thing that gave me my life. And it's what these clubs are. They're about public speaking on the surface. Yes, you will become a more skilled public speaker, but really what you will do is reveal an entire life inside of you that already exists, but that you don't know because you're not connected to it yet. So what we do is we teach public speaking as a tool for self-discovery. And it's really incredible, especially because you get to do it in this culture, in this community with other women who are on the same journey. And I've been running this Northampton Club and the Amherst Club for the last year, and just to watch the transformation that has taken place in these women's lives in this short year has been amazing. And I just want to like chronicle everything because it's just so incredible to see a woman get up and give her first speech and say, I've never told anybody this before, and I'm going to talk about it here tonight. And they're shaking, and maybe they're crying, and then they come back 2 months later, and they come up with confidence, and they're like, I have something even bigger to share tonight, because now I know that my voice is important. And what I shared last time, like, that's not even a big deal to me anymore. It's just so amazing what this forum creates. So I want to thank you all for coming and taking the first step to show up, because every step after this gets easier, I promise. And it's a lot of fun. And the way that we built this whole curriculum is to keep in mind that this standing up in front of people is not the easiest thing in the world. In fact, it's the biggest fear in adults. So to do this means you have to access courage, you have to access vulnerability, and when you do that, you start to open up really cool parts of yourself, and your life really changes. So thanks everyone for being here and being part of this movement we're creating. We're planning to have clubs globally. Right now we have 17 clubs around Massachusetts and other surrounding states in New England, and one in New Zealand. It's the power of the internet. And we're going to keep going. We're going to keep growing because women everywhere need this kind of training, and we really believe in it, and we're seeing how effective it is. And so by joining us in year one, you're part of the movement, and you're part of the ripple effect and helping other people change their life when they see you as a role model for taking this step and doing the work that's pretty hard, but it's really, really valuable. So thank you.